was a more about Edoba Daily Update. And the Parliament International na omo discussion before ECOWAS. Now, honorable the minority leader. Sorry, the majority leader make his submission. Now, fed no market be cancer, me no one in some backfire. No. Me nyabu chepaye. Wafenyo be cancer. Ghana na majority see the unity and democracy. No, cause Ghana. They say no MPP for no, and NDC for no, and I say nya say power at 10 years near me. You do me, I do you no. In the affair, Kasarian was or no as a person contradicting on that. They should tolerate them. The majority, as all poor majors, they should tolerate them because they will give a constructive criticism. So, in other way to promote democracy, no, the majority should tolerate them. That is Afenyo asem no ka say Ghana be say if you do me I do you. A church say the majority to tolerate you because the majority will tolerate you. Afenyo will stress the majority and tolerate you because Ghana no who Afenyo the can say if you do me I do you. And go take submission. That is Afenyo ono ansem a backfire na ma say proceedings no why yira mukra you go take.
To us. Leader, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me join colleagues to commend my colleague, the Honorable Emmanuel Kesi for this commemorative statement. ECOWAS is 50 years old. And I think that it is time to look back and see how far we have come. We don't appreciate what we have. And many of them envied on the continent of Africa because none of the sub-regional organizations have achieved as much as ECOWAS has achieved. Fundamentally, at the core of the ECOWAS principle, the establishment principle, is free movement of goods and persons. Arguably, there have been some limits when it comes to the free movement of goods. But as for the free movement of persons, ECOWAS, more than any other sub-regional organization, has been very, very successful. You travel freely across the sub-region, nobody really stops you. Once you're able to establish your documentation as a citizen of one of the member countries. Remember that even though it is free movement, it is free movement of only ECOWAS citizens. Citizens of the member countries. So at least there is a need to prove that you are a citizen of a member country. And that is why some identification becomes necessary. Because we have 4 other, sub-regional blocks, and there are about 35 other countries. So we need to establish that these are our citizens or citizens of member countries who can then enjoy the right to move within the sub-region unhindered. Of course, there will be challenges here and there, challenges at the borders, infrastructure challenges, but all in all, the principle of free movement of persons is highly respected and regarded in the sub-region. And I think that ECOWAS stands tall when you compare us with most other sub-regional organizations. I believe that the effort towards creating a common market, which is the other key pillar of ECOWAS, an economic community, has been challenged. And the challenge is resulting from the fact that the sub-region is divided between a francophone bloc and an anglophone bloc, and that has tended to stand in the way of getting greater integration, because the francophone bloc tends to be drawn into their relationship with Europe and particularly France, and then among themselves, their relationships. They are so integrated that they use a common currency, and it's perfectly possible within the sub-region for someone to travel through all the francophone countries without passing through an anglophone country. But the anglophone countries tend to be surrounded by the francophone countries. If you take Liberia and Sierra Leone, two very small countries, they are surrounded by francophones. You take Ghana, surrounded by francophones. You take Nigeria, surrounded by francophones. And so the anglophone countries are having a greater challenge in terms of uniting, in terms of working as a common bloc in relation to the francophone bloc. And that has, throughout the various institutions of ECOWAS, permeated and affected the working relationship between the citizens of the various member states. Mr. Speaker, it is hoped that democracy, which has been adopted as the guiding principle in terms of the governance of the individual countries, would have done better. Unfortunately, it still remains very challenged, and the situation has been exacerbated by recent developments in Mali, in Niger, in Guinea, and a few other countries. Our brothers in Togo are struggling. There are challenges in Benin. Guinea-Bissau has issues.
My submissions. First, on a very profound statement coming from my senior in ECOWAS, senior at the bar, senior in this chamber, and the leader of this house. He says, quote, Ghana has a moral authority in the sub-region to provide leadership. And why the moral authority in the sub-region to provide leadership? Because of our democracy. In my early days in the sub-region, when I arrived in one of the countries, I thought the airport was, we were doing transit. So when we got out and they said, oh, we've arrived, they said, this is it. And then we checked into a hotel, and the program was supposed to take place at a supposed 5-star hotel. And when we also got there, I said, is that the place? They said, yes. I said, hey, Ghana. In other words, Mr. Speaker, the Lord has blessed this country. Quite recently, I've been talking about the need for us as a country, particularly we the political class, to bring an end to this I do you, I do you. This if you do me, I'll do you. This if I get power, I'll show you where the power lies. There are certain petty things left for us to do. And if we are done, if we get these things resolved, we would have given it a fine-tuning. And I would say proudly that democracy in Ghana has come to stay. Mr. Speaker, if the majority leader is calling on Ghana to take leadership in the sub-region. What it means is that we need to do a lot as a country. And a lot depends on us as a political class. With the emerging social media and the level of expectation of our youth, if care is not taken, we would find ourselves on the wrong side of history. Let us build the institutions. Let's know the limits of the politics and where national issues begin. If we trivialize issues, one day we may have some challenges. If you look at the 2024 elections and you study the data, particularly the Greater Accra presidential result, the turnout, Greater Accra is where all the politics is done. Yet, if you look at the turnout was 55%. What does that tell? What does that mean? Or what does this data tell us? That some 45% of our people have lost confidence in the politics of our country and have lost confidence in us, in we the politicians. They listen to us, yet they don't believe us. And when you are involved in this enterprise called democracy, and the very people you are serving don't believe in you, then they'll be looking for the alternative. And when looking for the alternative, they don't care about capacity. I repeat, in all the countries that suffered revolution in recent history, it is no more about who is coming. It's about we are fed up with the system. Let us be careful. And I've been cautioning this over and over again. And I didn't start this when I entered into the left side of Mr. Speaker. I started it when I was on the right side of Mr. Speaker. The expectation is high. The expectation is unbearable. But our conduct will give rise to certain consequences. Let me share a story with you, colleagues. Harun Eseku, of blessed memory, he will support you with our constructive criticism to make democracy better, so that this country can provide the needed leadership in the sub-region. But you must equally tolerate us, accommodate us, and manage our views, because that is the beauty of the game called democracy. We cannot come and everything is being polarized. Everything is partisan. Ghana is not celebrating hard work, industry, and merits. It has to be whom you know. If I get power, I'm looking for who? Because I'm an MPP, I'm looking for who is an NDC for me to destroy. And when the time comes and you also get yours, you now will say, it is your time. It is also NDC's time. Let's destroy. All we have is our country, Ghana. If you see the way other countries are failing, if you see the way some of the democracies in the sub-region are having challenges, it's because the politicians in those jurisdictions took things for granted. And Ayana say Eba and Kaiwo, it becomes sudden. Mr. Speaker, when you are about to suffer a calamity, you don't get any form of notice. They just come, pam. So the Ghanaian political class, the concern what is happening in the sub-region, which has become the subject matter of our discussions today, should guide us, should remind us in how we posture. Mr. Speaker, whilst at it, let me commend those who came before me, were part of the ECOWAS infrastructure. Ghana indeed made significant contributions in the sub-region. Ghanaians who went to ECOWAS Parliament, Ghanaians who were part of ECOWAS Commission. I don't have the time to mention names, but any Ghanaian who entered the sub-region, be it an administrator, a parliamentarian, distinguished himself and herself. And, Mr. Speaker, all these contributions have made our country, Ghana, a shining example in the sub-region. Mr. Speaker, ECOWAS, as has already been said by the maker of the statement, made some efforts to ensure regional stability. There were several challenges in the sub-region that through its efforts in diplomacy, it ensured political stability. Today, ECOWAS is 50. We've been told of the numerous challenges. I can say that the clear vision that was established for integration, peace, development have seen significant strides in promoting economic cooperation. But we can do more. Mr. Speaker, recently I was doing some business in Tablibo in Togo. I was cutting some gypsum from Tablibo in Togo all the way to Aplawo, then to Bupe to support some cement production. And I know the difficulties I went through crossing the border, speaking English in a Francophone country. My drivers, sometimes they get arrested. You show your ECOWAS card, nobody would mind you and all. So practically, our traders who cross all the way to Nigeria, those who cross the border by road to Abidjan, are they experiencing the integration in its real form and shape? So that is a challenge that I believe that we must encourage our government to ensure that integration, free movement of persons, free movement of goods, intra-West African trade is properly enhanced. We trade more with those outside of the sub-region than we do from within. And indeed, is it that some of the goods cannot be found within the sub-region? Today we are concentrating so much on using gold to stabilize our currency. But what we've forgotten is that we can also encourage intra-West African trade, where liquidity remain within the sub-region, and that in itself can also help stabilize our various economies. We need to do that so that we will have a broad spectrum of opportunities for our various countries. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately,